Hello, everybody. If you're new here, my name is Miles, and I have been alone, not dating, single for the past 5 years. And today, I want to share some of the interesting things I've experienced during that time. And if you had told me 5 years ago that I was still going to be alone, that I wouldn't have seen anybody dated at all in that time, I probably would have smashed my face against a stone pillar or something like that in absolute rejection of such a terrible, terrible idea that I would squander away 5 precious years of this sacred life, this short, short life, squandered in solitude. I would have hated hearing that. Because I already had spent my fair share of time in solitude and introspection. So yeah, it's not something that I really set out for myself as a goal. It's something that happened one step at a time. And as much as I probably would have been disgusted by my choices, my past self might have been disgusted by my choices. From where I am in this story, I can tell you that it's been surprisingly beautiful, this period of aloneness. It's been surprisingly fulfilling and filled with love. And like I said, it's not something I set out as a goal to do. It's not something that morally or intellectually or ideologically I ever really wanted or gravitated towards. But having done it or not done it, however you want to, however you want to articulate it, it's been one of the most beautiful times in my life, I think. And just briefly to explain, like, how my story unfolded. 5 years ago, what happened to everybody really is in 2020, the world shut down. Early 2020, like kind of almost right about now, a couple weeks from now, 5 years ago, the world shut down for a while and things got really weird. And right before that, at the end of 2019, my last relationship ended. And by the time it was getting to be winter, late winter, I was ready to start dating. I was going on some dates and I was, I was still kind of licking my wounds after the end of, losing a love. But I was ready to get back into action and take advantage of this precious life. But the world shut down and it kind of stopped that. And a few things happened during the early days of me being in isolation because I was just stuck alone in my apartment with very little to do, and I stopped using my phone and my computer because I was getting some strange headaches that seemed to have something to do with excessive technology use. And I just went into like intense solitude isolation mode. And at first it was very painful because I was confronted by all my feelings and I was confronted by the actual sadness and devastation that was in me after the relationship that just ended. And I'm pretty sure I was ready to just jump into someone else's arms and I wouldn't have really dealt with the feelings that were quite strong that had been kind of torn open in the wake of that relationship. And yeah, taking away all external distraction, taking away technological distraction, I was just alone with myself. And I started walking in the woods, feeling it all, and very quickly it got really good. It became wonderful because I remembered, oh, I love feeling this is, man, it's so cool to feel so much. And I started writing as an outlet to channel some of the feelings that I was going through. And pretty soon I started writing a book. And by the time the world started to open up a little bit and I could have started dating again, I I was in a relationship with the book I was writing, and I did not dare step out of the intense creative focus that I was in. So I didn't want to lose. I felt like I had opened up a vein. It was flowing profusely, a vein of creativity that was flowing profusely. And I knew how incredibly easily I could throw it all away for a pretty person, and that's not to trivialize a pretty person, but I just knew like I was in something sacred, and it was something I hadn't felt or touched in a long time. And I was like, hey, Miles, be patient. You can start dating as soon as we're done. The first draft. I finished the first draft of the book, and I realized you can't start dating right now. You've gotta keep on going with this. And so I would keep on editing and refining the book, and after 9 months, it was pretty much finished. It was this singular focus that I was obsessively working on, and it was so beautiful. I now had this like beautiful, purposeful work to thrust myself into. It was, yeah, it made my life so much richer and happier. And by the time that the book was done, I realized my next job was going to be to figure out how the heck to connect it to readers and promote the work. And long story short, that basically, if I were to cut out a bunch of interesting stuff, that brings me to today. Like, something started pretty shortly after my last relationship ended. Like, I opened up this creative flow, and I've written a few books since then. Like, that has just turned into a really passionate creative period, especially the last 2 years. I wrote 2 books in the last 2 years. So I've been really into it. And yeah, basically, there's just been this voice inside of me, or this feeling that there's always something to focus on, to love, but it hasn't been that for this period of time. So it was writing that book, and then it was getting it out to the world. And then I realized, oh man, I turned away from a bunch of friendships and family and just walked away from a bunch of people. And eventually I just realized, hey man, this is going to be uncomfortable, but you have to face all of that. You've got some work to do as far as healing some relationships you blew up. And so I turned towards that, and then that was a focus. And again, it's something I might have conveniently disassociated from if I had a certain type of love or fixation in my life. But because I didn't have that, it just seemed like it was time to like do some work as far as growing up and cleaning up some messes that I had made. So yeah, there was some relationships that I was able to focus on, and that meant a lot of important, beautiful stuff to focus on there. And also my relationship with nature, which I talk about a lot on here, and I talk about a lot in my books. I think that really, really ended up blossoming and exploding into a very, really like the center of my life in some sense, like an emotional or spiritual sense, as much as friendships and work and family and all of that is a center of life. My relationship with nature has been too. And it's been, I think, the kind of regulation that I might have sought out in a woman or in a partner in the past. It's something that I've had in nature to go to. It's like this part of me that needs to be held or filled somehow. Because one door has been closed, I've had to find other places to go for that love. The places to give love, the places to receive love. And nature has probably been the most consistent. I live beside a beautiful natural space that I get to go walk in every day for an hour or more. And it's pretty difficult to describe or put into words how meaningful that relationship has become. It was that way when I was younger. Um, and then something happened and I didn't have that in my life anymore. And I think that that made the way that I approached romantic love very skewed, I think. And it's always we're human, right? Nobody's a machine. We love in bizarre and wonderful ways, and sometimes neurotic and wonderful ways. I don't know if I'm going to outgrow that. Um, but it seems as though um, having something in my life, it's like a higher power, right? Having nature in my life, um, to me, it takes the place of a higher power, something that I can go to every day. It's consistent, it's stable, it's bigger than me. It's I can like just bow down before its ancient wisdom and grandiosity. And something about that just feels so healthy and right. And like it just puts things into the right place inside of me. Um, and yeah, I don't know how that would or will or could change how I approach romantic love. I do think I'm slightly less desperate and anxious because I have that in my life. So maybe it already has changed it to some extent. Um, but yeah, and I've found beautiful friends that I've experienced wonderful connection and love with over this time. And my work as a waiter has become a place of love and connection and learning. And I feel like as a writer, so I work evenings as a waiter, and when I'm writing a book during the days I'll write, or when I'm promoting a book during the days I'll work on stuff related to that. And at the restaurant where I work as a waiter, I just feel like I get to learn so much about humanity because there's this river of humanity that flows through there. And I get to interact with people as a in this very interesting role. And I've learned a lot about the way people communicate, the ways that we're all similar, and yeah, it just really has opened up my mind. And I think it's helped me as a writer and just as a person. And I think I think again that not having that one extraordinary door to love open in my life has it's just made me more sensitive to and perceptive of the love in all of these other places. So instead of being fully pre-consumed with someone that I have an infatuation for or I'm in a passionate romance with, I've just been really, really present to all the love that's probably always been hiding around me. That beautiful woman who sits down alone at a table in the restaurant and that I can have like this soulful conversation with that I'll remember for the rest of my life because it's so beautiful and moving. Um, those are things that I've become way, way, way more appreciative of and aware of over this time. And I don't know if I needed to be alone in order for that to happen, but those two things did correlate with each other. And yeah, I just think intellectually, I still think it's a terrible idea for me to be alone for 5 years. Like, I still don't, like, I would never encourage someone to do that. I don't think it's a good idea on paper. And I was at war with myself for quite a while because I felt like I had this conflict where I felt like I was letting life pass me by. I was probably just insecure and avoiding the vulnerability of love, and romantic love. Um, and yet there was this feeling in my gut that just kept on telling me, not time, brother. There's this other thing for you to focus on. But I didn't really trust that. And it's really just in the past year or so that I finally just accepted that I have been just listening to myself. And sometimes that takes you directions you didn't expect. Doesn't take you where your mind thought you were going to want to go. But I am not in a position to complain in any way, shape, or form about where it has taken me. Because, like I said, it's made me more appreciative of nearly everything. And there are moments where I will feel desperation or like the sting of loneliness. And this maybe also because so much time has passed, the sense of like time running out or something. Yeah. But I feel that pretty infrequently. And usually when something else is going on, it's like something makes me crash. And then down where into the crash zone, everything just kind of looks like death down there. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised that I don't feel lonely or jealous or insecure or all of that more often. But not complaining. It's kind of nice to not. Yeah, so without elaborating any further, I guess I'll just say that I wouldn't recommend it, but it has been very beautiful. And it has forced me to find love in many other places, and I'm very grateful for that. And it's forced me to examine some of the things that were blocking me from that love. And yeah, a lot of good has come from it. And I grew in certain ways that things that would have been acceptable for me in the past just aren't anymore. I take other people's feelings very seriously. So I don't really like playing around with people's feelings, and I'd much rather be alone than hurt somebody's feelings for some fleeting pleasure. That's a pretty sad and pathetic thing, in my opinion. Yeah, and so yeah, it's been a good ride. I've enjoyed it. It's not something I thought I would have chosen, but like I said, it's just been one step at a time, and there has been a lot of love that I've found, and it's been a very fruitful period creatively. If you want to check out my latest book where I write about it in more detail, it's called A Different Kind of Power. It's a collection of very honest, vulnerable stories from this chapter of my life of just finding love and hope in everyday life, and kind of just finding purpose in connecting with people and nature and kindness, random acts of kindness and healing. And it's it's a book. I wrote it, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes below if you're interested in checking it out. And yeah, tell me what you think, you guys. Have you spent a season alone? Have you spent a couple? What was it like for you? Was it good? Was it bad? I know it's not always easy, but sometimes that ends up being the best part. With all the time I spent alone over these past 5 years, some of the most beautiful stuff has just been the space to feel the sadness, the space to feel the longing and the emptiness, and just find something beautiful on the other side of it. Maybe it's a voice that says, hey man, I want you to do more with your life right now. Hey man, I want you to have more fun in your life. I want you to do beautiful things. I want you to write that book. I want you to embarrass yourself out there. Sometimes the space to feel the sadness is a good thing. And sometimes it's not. That's again why I wouldn't recommend this for anybody, but this is just my experience. And hope someone out there found it enjoyable or entertaining or maybe even helpful. And thank you all for joining me Until next time, take care of yourselves and be well.